The sirens cut through Detroit's cold dawn like sharp blades, but Jamal Washington didn't even look up from his broken skateboard. At 17, he had learned that sirens were just the soundtrack of ghetto life, constant, inevitable, and usually meaning someone he knew was in trouble. Sitting on the cracked steps of the housing project where he lived with his mother, Jamal watched the red and blue lights reflect off the broken windows of surrounding buildings. It was 3 in the morning on a Friday and he couldn't sleep. Again, the insomnia had started 2 months ago, since he'd turned 17 and reality hit him like a punch to the stomach. In less than a year, he'd officially be an adult, and he had no idea how to be one. Apartment 4B behind him was silent, but Jamal knew his mother, Denise, wasn't sleeping. She never slept when he went out at night. She was probably sitting in the worn armchair in the living room, still wearing her blue hospital uniform, where she'd worked as a nursing assistant for 15 years, waiting for him to come home. Waiting for another argument about his future, his grades, his attitudes, his wrong friends. "Jamal!" Her voice cut through the night like a whip. "Are you coming in or are you going to sit there feeding mosquitoes all night?" He sighed, grabbed his skateboard and climbed the creaking stairs. Each step echoed like a funeral drum announcing another battle. Denise Washington was exactly where he'd imagined. In the armchair, still in uniform, eyes red with exhaustion and worry. At 42, she looked 55. 15 years raising a son alone, working double and triple shifts, trying to keep her head above water in an ocean of bills and responsibilities had taken its toll. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice laden with exhaustion that went far beyond physical. Around where, Jamal? With whom? Doing what?" "Just skateboarding, Mum. Relax." "Relax?" Denise stood up, her voice rising an octave. "Saz, you want me to relax when my 17-year-old son is out on the streets until 3 in the morning? When your grades are a disgrace? When you barely talked to me for months?" Jamal threw his skateboard in the corner and crossed his arms. "Here we go again. Yes, here we go again, because nothing changes. You keep acting like you have no responsibilities, like you can live forever, being a rebellious teenager. And what do you want me to do? Become a robot like you? Work, 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 and die of exhaustion?" The words came out crueler than Jamal intended, but once in the air, there was no taking them back. He saw his mother's face crumble, pain crossing her eyes like a shadow. "A robot," she whispered. "Jamal, everything I do is for you. Every extra shift, every hour of lost sleep, I didn't ask for this," he exploded. "I didn't ask to be born. I didn't ask to grow up without a father. I didn't ask to be your life project." The silence that followed was deafening. Denise stood motionless for a moment, then turned and walked slowly to her room. "Your mother loves you more than you'll ever understand," she said quietly before closing the door. "I hope someday you discover that before it's too late." Jamal stood alone in the living room, the echo of his cruel words reverberating in his mind. Part of him wanted to knock on his mother's bedroom door and apologize, but a bigger part, the angry, hurt, and confused part that had grown like a tumor in recent years, kept him frozen in place. He went to his room and threw himself on the bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. On the opposite wall was a faded photo of him at age 5 with his mother at the park. Both were smiling, she pushing him on a swing, both completely happy in that moment, frozen in time. When had everything changed? When had he become this bitter person who hurt the only person who really cared about him? The answer came as it always did, in the memories he tried to suppress. 6 years ago, when he was 11, his father had appeared out of nowhere. Marcus Washington, the man who had abandoned pregnant Denise and disappeared for a decade, arrived with expensive gifts, big promises, and elaborate excuses. "Sean, I want to be part of my son's life," he had said to Denise, while Jamal listened from the kitchen. "I'm different now. I have a business, money, stability." For 6 glorious months, Jamal had a father. Marcus took him to basketball games, bought expensive sneakers, talked about the future. Jamal had begun to dream of a real family, of a father who would teach him how to become a man. Then Marcus disappeared again. This time, he took $2,000 that Denise had saved for Jamal's college fund. He left only a note, I'm not made for this. Sorry. Jamal had never recovered from the second rejection. The first, as a baby, hadn't hurt because he didn't understand. The second destroyed him because he was old enough to understand exactly what he was losing. Since then, he had built walls around his heart. Walls against pain, against expectation, against hope. And unfortunately, those walls also kept his mother outside. The next morning, Jamal woke to the smell of bacon and eggs, his mother's special Saturday recipe. He went down to the kitchen and found Denise preparing breakfast, acting as if the previous night's argument had never happened. "Good morning, son," she said without looking at him. "Breakfast is almost ready." Jamal sat at the small kitchen table, watching his mother. She had put on light makeup to cover the dark circles, but he could see the sadness in her curved shoulders. "Mom, about last night." "Forget it," she said quickly. "We all say things we don't mean when we're tired." But Jamal knew she hadn't forgotten, and neither had he. After breakfast, he went out to meet his friends at the local community center. The group was an eclectic mix of neighborhood youth. There was Deshawn, who dealt drugs on street corners but dreamed of being a rapper. Tyreek, who had dropped out of school in sophomore year but was a genius with cars. And Malik, who was still in school but spent more time in detention than in class. "What's up, J-Money?" Deshawn greeted him with an elaborate handshake. "How you look like you got hit by a truck, man." "Didn't sleep well," Jamal muttered, picking up his skateboard. "Your mum giving you grief again?" Tyreek asked while working on the engine of a 1995 Civic he'd been fixing for 6 months. "Always." "Man, you need to move out," Malik said, lighting a cigarette. "My aunt has an empty apartment on the south side. You could split it with me." "With what money?" Jamal laughed bitterly. "I'm an unemployed high school student." "Deshawn can hook you up with work," Tyreek suggested with a mischievous smile. Deshawn shook his head. "Nah, man. J-Money's too straight for that." "Straight?" Jamal was offended. "I'm not straight. You still go to school, man. Still live with your mom. Still have hope of going to college and all that nonsense." "And what's wrong with that?" Deshawn shrugged. "Nothing. It's just naive. Look around us, man. You think college is going to change anything? You think you can get out of here?" Deshawn's words planted a poisonous seed in Jamal's mind. What if he was right? What if all his mother's struggle, all the sacrifices, all the hopes were useless? What if he was destined to be trapped in this place forever? In the following months, that seed grew. Jamal's grades plummeted. He began skipping classes regularly. He started coming home later and later, sometimes drunk, sometimes just lost in a fog of anger and hopelessness. Denise tried everything. Serious conversations, punishments, bribery, pleas. Nothing worked. Her son was slipping through her fingers like sand, and she didn't know how to hold on to him. On a particularly bad night in November, Jamal came home at 5 in the morning, completely drunk. Denise was waiting in the living room, and this time she wasn't just sad, she was furious. "Where were you, Jamal?" "Party," he mumbled, staggering. "What party? With whom? And why are you drunk? Why do you care? I'm not your perfect project anyway." "Project?" Denise stood up, her voice trembling with contained anger. "You think you're a project to me, aren't you? Your whole life revolves around fixing me, turning me into something I'm not." "And what are you, Jamal? Tell me, because I look at you and don't recognize my son. Where is the sweet boy who used to make me breakfast on Mother's Day? Where is the kid who dreamed of being an engineer? Where is my son?" She was crying now, tears of frustration and heartbreak running down her face. "Your son died when his father abandoned him for the second time," Jamal shouted back. "And you know it. You know I never recovered, but you keep pretending I can be normal. So you're going to let a man who doesn't even know you determine who you are? He knows me well enough to know I'm not worth staying for." The silence that followed was broken only by Denise's sobs. Jamal saw her crumble, all the weight of years of struggle and worry finally breaking her. "Jamal," she whispered, "if you continue on this path, you'll lose more than your father. You'll lose yourself and you'll lose me too." "Maybe that's better," he said, the words coming out like poison. "That way you can have a life of your own instead of wasting everything on me." Denise looked at him for a long moment. and Jamal saw something die in her eyes. Hope, perhaps. Faith. Unconditional love. Maybe you're right, she said quietly. So maybe I need to stop trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. She went to her room and closed the door. This time, Jamal didn't hear crying. The silence was worse. In the following days, a subtle but profound change happened at home. Denise stopped making the special Saturday breakfast, stopped asking where he'd been, stopped fighting about grades or behavior. She simply stopped. At first, Jamal thought he had won. Finally, freedom. Finally, peace. But when the novelty wore off, he realized he hadn't won anything. He had lost the only person who really cared about him. The house became cold and silent. Mother and son lived like polite strangers, sharing space, but not life. Denise left for work, came back, cooked for herself, watched TV alone, and went to bed. Jamal came and went like a ghost. This went on for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of deafening loneliness that made Jamal understand that his mother's annoying attention was actually love. And now that he no longer had it, he felt like he was slowly dying. On a December morning, Jamal woke to the sound of his mother talking on the phone. Her voice was different, lighter, more hopeful than he'd heard in months. "Yes, I understand," she was saying. "It's a big opportunity. When would you need an answer?" Jamal approached her bedroom door, curiosity overcoming his pride. "Atlanta," she continued. "Yes, I've always wanted to work at a bigger hospital, and the salary is almost double what I make here." Atlanta. Jamal felt his world stop. "I have to think about my son, but honestly, I think a change would do both of us good." When the call ended, Jamal knocked on the door. "Come in," Denise said. He opened the door and found his mother sitting on the bed, holding some papers. "Are you moving?" he asked directly. Denise looked him in the eyes for the first time in weeks. "They offered me a job in Atlanta, nursing supervisor at Grady Hospital. It's a promotion I never thought I'd get. And you're going to accept? I'm seriously considering it. What about me? You'll be 18 in 3 months, Jamal. You can make your own choices." The coldness in her voice hit him like a slap. This was his mother, the woman who had sacrificed everything for him, talking about leaving him behind as if he were a stranger. "Would you abandon me? Like my father?" Denise sighed deeply. "Jamal, there's a difference between abandoning someone and stopping letting them destroy your life. For 15 years, I made you my only priority. I worked jobs I hated, lived in places that scared me, sacrificed my dreams, all to give you chances I never had." She stood up and walked to the window. "And you threw it all away. Not just threw it away, you blamed me for offering it. So yes, I'm considering living for myself for the first time in 15 years. But I'm your son. You are, and always will be. But being a mother doesn't mean accepting emotional abuse indefinitely. It doesn't mean passively watching while my son destroys himself." Jamal felt tears burning his eyes. "So that's it. You give up on me." "No, Jamal. I'm stopping trying to save you from yourself. If you want to change, it has to come from you. If you want our relationship back, you have to fight for it." She turned to look at him directly. "Faiz, but if you choose to continue on the self-destructive path you're following, I won't be the audience for this tragedy anymore." That night, Jamal couldn't leave the house. He sat in his room, looking at the photo of him and his mother at the park, trying to understand when everything had gone so wrong. Around 10 at night, he heard a strange noise coming from the living room. He went to investigate and found his mother on the kitchen floor, holding her chest and breathing with difficulty. "Mom!" he screamed, running to her. "I can't breathe properly," she gasped. Jamal grabbed the phone and called emergency, then knelt beside his mother, holding her hand while they waited for the ambulance. "Everything's going to be okay," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Please, stay with me. Please." At the hospital, doctors diagnosed a severe panic attack caused by extreme stress and exhaustion. Denise was kept for observation for 24 hours. Jamal spent the entire night at the hospital, sitting in the chair beside his mother's bed, watching her sleep. For the first time in years, He truly saw his mother, not as an adversary or obstacle, but as a human woman who had given everything for him and was broken by the effort. When she woke the next morning, she found Jamal holding her hand, his eyes red from crying. "Hi, son," she said softly. "Hi, Mum. How are you feeling?" "Better. Jamal, about yesterday." "No," he interrupted her. "Let me talk first. Please." Denise nodded. "Mom, I'm an idiot. A selfish, ungrateful, cruel idiot. You sacrificed your entire life for me, and I threw it in your face as if it were your fault." He took a deep breath. "I was so angry at my father for abandoning me that I ended up abandoning you, and that's unforgivable." "Jamal, let me finish. I don't want you to go to Atlanta running away from me. I want you to go because it's an incredible opportunity you deserve, and I want to go with you." "Are you sure?" "I am. If you'll let me. If you still want a son like me." Denise began to cry, but this time they were tears of relief and hope. "Of course I want you, Jamal. You'll always be my son, no matter what happens. Then help me fix this. Help me become the man you always believed I could be." Denise squeezed her son's hand. "We'll fix it together." At that moment, a nurse entered the room with Denise's discharge papers. She was an elderly woman with grey hair, a gentle smile, and kind eyes. "How are you feeling, dear?" she asked Denise. "Much better, thank you." The nurse turned to Jamal. "And you must be the devoted son who stayed here all night." "Devoted isn't quite the word," Jamal said, embarrassed. "Actually, I'm the reason my mother is here." The nurse studied him for a moment. "Young man, can I share something with you?" Jamal nodded. "I've worked here for 30 years. I've seen many families in crisis, and I can tell you that the fact that you're here, taking responsibility and wanting change, means your heart is in the right place." She approached the bed. "There's a Bible verse that always gives me hope in situations like this. 'For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future.'" Jeremiah 29:11, Denise whispered. "Exactly. Sometimes we have to hit rock bottom to find our true strength. Sometimes God allows things to break so they can be rebuilt stronger." The nurse smiled at both of them. "You two have been through a storm, but I can see the love between you. With faith, hard work, and mutual forgiveness, you can rebuild something beautiful." When they left the hospital, Jamal and Denise walked in silence for a few blocks. Finally, Jamal broke the silence. "Mom, I want to really change, but I don't know how." "The first step," Denise said, "is being willing to change. The second is asking for help." "What kind of help?" "Maybe therapy, maybe support groups, definitely changing friends and environment." "And Atlanta?" "Atlanta can be a new beginning for both of us, a chance to leave old patterns behind." They stopped in front of the community center where Jamal used to meet his friends. Deshawn was leaning against the wall, talking to some guys Jamal didn't recognize. "J-Money," Deshawn waved. "Where you been, man? Haven't seen you in days." Jamal looked at Deshawn, then at his mother, then back at Deshawn. For the first time, he saw his friend clearly, a 19-year-old with no prospects, no education, no future beyond the streets. "Hey, Deshawn," he said. "Actually, I was at the hospital with my mom." Man, is she okay?" "She is now, and so am I." Deshawn looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about growing up, man. I'm moving to Atlanta with my mom, going to finish high school there and try college." "Atlanta," Deshawn laughed. "Man, you're not going anywhere. You'll be back here in 6 months, selling on corners like everyone else." "No," Jamal said firmly. "I won't." "Why? Because you think you're better than us?" "No, because I deserve more than this, and so do you. But you don't want to admit it." Jamal turned to leave, but Deshawn grabbed his arm. "You can't just leave, man. That's not how it works." "That's exactly how it works," Denise intervened, positioning herself between Deshawn and her son. "My son chose a different path." Deshawn looked at Denise, then at Jamal. "Man, you're letting your mommy fight your battles." Jamal felt the familiar anger rising, but this time he channeled it differently. "No, I'm letting my mother know she has a son who respects her, Something you probably don't understand. He turned to Denise. Let's go, Mum. We have a lot of planning to do. As they walked home, Denise took Jamal's hand. I'm proud of you. Why? I just said no to some guys. No. You chose your future over your past. That was a man's decision. In the following months, Jamal worked hard to rebuild his life. He returned to school and managed to raise his grades. He started therapy with a counselor who helped him process his feelings about his father. Most importantly, he began rebuilding his relationship with his mother. It wasn't easy. There were days when the old anger returned, days when he wanted to give up, days when Deshawn's cruel words echoed in his mind, "You'll be back here in 6 months." But whenever the temptation became too strong, he remembered his mother on the hospital floor, remembered the tears in her eyes, remembered the love she had never stopped showing even when he didn't deserve it. In May, the acceptance letter from Georgia State University arrived. Jamal had been accepted with a partial scholarship based on his academic improvement and personal essay about overcoming adversity. "Mom!" he shouted, running to the kitchen where Denise was preparing dinner. "I did it! I got accepted!" Denise dropped her spoon and hugged him, both crying with joy. "I knew you could do it," she whispered. "I always knew you had it in you." In August, Jamal and Denise loaded their few possessions into a rented moving truck. As they drove through Detroit streets for the last time, Jamal looked out the window at the places that had defined his childhood and adolescence. "Do you regret leaving?" Denise asked. "No," Jamal replied. "I'm grateful. This place taught me a lot about who I don't want to be." "And who do you want to be?" Jamal thought for a moment. "I want to be a man who honors his mother. I want to be someone you can be proud to call your son. Jamal, I've always been proud of you, even in the most difficult moments." "How?" "Because I knew that underneath all that anger was a good heart. It was just hurt." They drove in comfortable silence for a few miles, Detroit's skyline getting smaller in the rearview mirror. "Mom," Jamal said finally. "Yes." "Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I deserved for you to give up. That's the thing about a mother's love, son. It's not based on what you deserve. It's based on who you are." "And who am I?" Denise smiled. "You're Jamal Washington. You're my son, a future college student, a young man who chose to grow instead of giving up. You're someone who has a bright future ahead." When they arrived in Atlanta, they rented a small apartment near the university campus and the hospital where Denise would work. It was small, but it was theirs, and for the first time in years, it felt like home. On their first night in the new apartment, they sat on the empty living room floor, eating pizza from cardboard boxes. "To new beginnings," Denise said, raising her soda can. "To mothers who never give up," Jamal replied, touching his can to hers, "and to sons who learn to grow." 2 years later, Jamal was a sophomore in college, studying engineering, with a 3.7 GPA. Denise had been promoted to shift supervisor at the hospital and was considering going back to school for nursing. On a spring afternoon, Jamal received a letter that shocked him. It was from Deshawn. The letter said that Deshawn was in prison, serving a 5-year sentence for drug trafficking. He wrote, "Man, you were right. Should have left when I could. Now it's too late for me. But I wanted you to know I admire what you did. You were brave. Stay strong." Jamal showed the letter to his mother that night. "That could have been me," he said quietly. "But it wasn't. You made different choices. Only because you never gave up on me. And because you chose to accept help when you were ready." Jamal folded the letter carefully. "I want to write back to him. Maybe I can help him somehow." "That's my son," Denise smiled, always trying to help others. That night, Jamal wrote a long letter to Deshawn, sharing his journey and offering hope. He also began researching mentorship programs for at-risk youth. By the end of his sophomore year, Jamal had co-founded a program called Second Chances that connected college students with ghetto youth from Atlanta, offering mentorship and tutoring. "Why is this so important to you?" a local reporter asked during an interview about the program. "Because someone needs to tell these kids they have value," Jamal replied. "Someone needs to show them there's a way out. If my mother hadn't done that for me, I'd be dead or in prison now." "What did your mother do that was special?" Jamal thought for a moment. She loved me when I was impossible to love. She had faith in me when I didn't have faith in myself, and when I was ready to change, she showed me how. After the interview, Jamal called his mother. "Hi, Mom. I just gave an interview to the local news channel about the program. Really, I'm so proud." "What did you say?" "I said it all started with a mother who never gave up on her troubled son." Denise was silent for a moment. "Jamal, you know it wasn't just me, right? You made the hardest choice of all, the choice to change. But you gave me the strength to make that choice." 3 years passed. Jamal was graduating in engineering with honors, had already been accepted to a master's program, and the Second Chances program had expanded to 5 cities. At the graduation ceremony, Denise was in the front row, tears of pride streaming down her face as she watched her son receive his diploma. When it was his turn to speak as class representative, Jamal looked directly at his mother. "5 years ago," he began, "I was a lost young man, angry and directionless. I thought the world owed me something because of the difficulties I faced. I blamed everyone around me for my problems, especially the person who loved me most." He paused, finding his mother's eyes in the audience. "My mother worked 3 jobs to support me. She sacrificed her dreams for mine. She endured my anger, my rebellion, my cruelty, and when I almost broke her, she had the courage to let me find my own way back home." The audience was completely silent. "I learned that sometimes loving someone means letting them face the consequences of their choices. I learned that redemption isn't something that can be given, it has to be earned. And I learned that it's never too late to choose to be the person God wants us to be." He looked at his notes, then put them aside. "To any young person watching and feeling lost, you are not condemned by your past mistakes. You are not limited by your childhood circumstances. You have the power to write your own story." He held his diploma high. "This diploma isn't just mine. It belongs to every single mother working double shifts. It belongs to every child who grew up without a father, but found strength in the family they have. It belongs to everyone who chose hope instead of despair." The audience erupted in applause. Denise was crying openly, placing her hand over her heart. After the ceremony, mother and son met in the parking lot. "I'm so proud of you," Denise said, hugging Jamal. "Not more than I'm proud of you," he replied. "You're the strongest woman I know. We're a good team. The best." As they walked to the car, Jamal stopped suddenly. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "In those years when I was being so terrible to you, did you ever really think about giving up on me?" Denise stopped and turned to look at him. "Honestly, yes. There were moments when I thought maybe I was a terrible mother, moments when I wondered if you'd be better off without me. And what made you continue? A prayer I said every night. I asked God to show me my son, the real Jamal, underneath all that anger and pain. And you know what he showed me?" "What?" "He showed me you at 5 years old, pushing a chair to help reach something in the cabinet. He showed me you at 7, sharing your lunch with a child who had forgotten theirs. He showed me you at 10, comforting me when I cried about work problems." Denise touched Jamal's face. "I knew that kind boy was still in there. He was just hurt and lost. And I knew that if I could weather the storm, I'd eventually see the sun again. And if you were wrong, then at least I'd know I tried everything. But I wasn't wrong. Here you are, my beautiful son, graduated from college, helping other children, being the man I always knew you could be." Jamal hugged his mother again, this time tighter. "Thank you for having faith in me when I didn't deserve it. Jamal, a mother's love isn't about deserving, it's about believing. And I always believed in you." 2 years later, Jamal was working as an engineer at a green technology company, still maintaining the Second Chances program in his free time. Denise had finished her nursing degree and was working as a pediatric nursing supervisor. On a Saturday morning, Jamal's phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. "Hello? Jamal, it's Deshawn." Jamal almost dropped the phone. "Deshawn, man, you got out." "Got out yesterday." "Good behavior. Man, I want to thank you for all the letters you sent. They kept me sane." "How are you?" "Good, actually. Got my GED in prison. And guess what? I enrolled in the computer technician program at community college." "Deshawn, That's amazing. Yeah, man, it took 5 years in prison for me to understand what you tried to tell me, that we have choices. And now I want to make the right choices. I want to be better. And I was thinking, do you still have that program for youth? I do. Can I help? I know I have a record, Cess, but maybe I can talk to some of these kids. Tell my story. Show them where the wrong path leads. Jamal felt tears forming in his eyes. Deshawn, man, that would be incredible. Really, really. Some of these kids need to hear from someone who lived on the streets, someone who understands the temptation. Thank you, man. I don't know how to repay everything you did for me. You repay it by helping the next lost kid. 6 months later, Deshawn had become one of the most effective mentors in the Second Chances program. His brutal but honest story about the consequences of wrong choices was saving lives. One night, after a particularly intense mentoring session, Jamal and Deshawn were cleaning up the community room. You know what's funny, Deshawn said. What? Back then, when you decided to leave Detroit, I thought you were being weak, I thought you were running. And now I understand you were being brave. It's easy to stay where you are, even when where you are is bad. It's hard to pick up and build something new. Jamal stopped stacking chairs. Deshawn, can I tell you something? I was scared. I was terrified. Of what? Of failing. Of proving that everyone who said I wouldn't make it was right. But you made it. I made it because I had help. My mother, therapists, teachers, new friends. Nobody can change alone. That's what we try to teach these kids, right? Exactly. That asking for help isn't weakness, that accepting love isn't surrender, that change is possible if you're willing to work for it. They finished cleaning in comfortable silence. Jamal, Deshawn said as they were leaving. Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I was in prison. Someone special taught me that we never give up on people we love. We just adjust how we love them. The next morning, Jamal woke to a call from his mother. Son, turn on the TV to Channel 5. Why? Just turn it on. Jamal turned on the TV and saw a segment about the Second Chances program. The reporter was interviewing several young people who had been helped by the program. This program saved me, said Marcus, a 16-year-old boy. I was ready to drop out of school and join a gang. Jamal and Deshawn showed me I had other options. They didn't just teach me about math and science, said Keisha, a 15-year-old girl. They taught me that my past doesn't determine my future. The segment ended with the reporter saying, in just 5 years, the Second Chances program has helped more than 300 at-risk youth. 95% of them stay in school, and 80% plan to go to college. Jamal's phone rang again. Did you see? Denise said. I saw. It's incredible. You know what I'm most proud of? What? That you took your pain and transformed it into purpose. You took your redemption story and used it to rescue others. I learned from the best, Jamal smiled. What? You did the same thing with me. You took an impossible son and transformed him into a man. You took a hopeless situation and found hope. We did it, son, together. That afternoon, Jamal was in his office when he received an unexpected visit. It was a middle-aged man he didn't immediately recognize. Can I help you? Jamal asked. The man hesitated. Jamal, I'm Marcus, your father. Jamal's world stopped. He hadn't seen Marcus in over 6 years, since the day he had disappeared for the second time. What do you want? Jamal asked, his voice surprisingly calm. I saw you on TV. The program, your graduation, everything you built. Marcus paused, clearly struggling with words. I came to apologize. For abandoning you. Twice. For not being the father you needed. For leaving all the responsibility of raising you on your mother's shoulders. Jamal studied his father's face. Marcus looked older, more tired, with gray hair and deep wrinkles around his eyes. Why now? Jamal asked. Because... Marcus took a deep breath. Because I'm dying. Lung cancer. I have a few months. Jamal felt a wave of conflicting emotions. Anger, sadness, pity, confusion. And you thought you could show up here, apologize, and everything would be okay. No, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I ruined my chance to be your father long ago. Marcus sat heavily in the chair across from Jamal's desk. But I wanted you to know that I'm proud of the man you became, and I wanted you to know that my biggest regret isn't the money I lost or the opportunities I wasted. It's having missed the chance to know my son. Jamal was silent for a long moment. You hurt much more than just me, he said finally. You broke my mother. She worked 3 jobs to make up for your absence. She endured my anger when I took it out on her because of your choices. I know, and it kills me. Good. It should kill you. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Can I ask you something? Marcus said. What? How did you do it? How did you overcome everything? Jamal thought carefully before answering. I realized I had a choice. I could let your absence define me, or I could choose to be the man you should have been. And you chose to be better than me. I chose to be better than I was. You were just the catalyst. Marcus nodded slowly. Can I ask you one more thing? Depends. Can you forgive me? Jamal looked at his father, this man who had caused so much pain, so much suffering, so much anger in his life. For years, he had fantasized about this moment. He had imagined screaming, throwing Marcus out, making him feel a fraction of the pain he had caused. But looking at the broken man in front of him, Jamal felt something different. Not love, that would take time if it ever came, but compassion. Pity for the wasted life, the lost opportunities, the destroyed relationships. I forgive you, Jamal said finally. Marcus began to cry. Not because you deserve it, Jamal continued, but because I deserve peace. I deserve to free myself from the anger I've carried for so long. Thank you. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean we automatically have a relationship. I understand. If you want to know the man your son became, you can, but it'll be on my terms, at my pace. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. Anything, I just want to know you. Then start by coming to the second chances sessions. See what I built, understand who I became. Can I do that? If you're willing to listen to stories of young people who grew up without fathers, if you're willing to face what your absence cost, I am. That night, Jamal told his mother about Marcus's visit. How do you feel? She asked. Strangely at peace. For years, I thought if he came back, I'd explode with anger. But when I saw him, I just felt sorry for him. Sorry? Yes. He lost the chance to know me. He lost the chance to be my father. He lost all the joy of watching me grow up, graduate, build a life. Denise nodded. And you? Did you lose anything? No, because I had you. I had the most incredible mother in the world. I had love, support, guidance. I had everything I needed. Are you going to let him be part of your life? On some level, yes, but he's not my father, Mom. You're my father and my mother. You raised the man I am. Jamal, it's true, and I want him to see that. I want him to understand what he lost and what you accomplished. In the following months, Marcus began attending the second chances sessions. At first, he just observed. Gradually, he began to participate, sharing his own story of wrong choices and lost opportunities. My name is Marcus, he said in one session, and I'm the worst kind of man, the kind who abandons his son. The young people listened attentively as he told about how fear of responsibility made him run away repeatedly. I thought I was protecting my son from my problems, he continued, but I was actually being a coward. And my cowardice almost destroyed one of the most important people in my life. He looked at Jamal, who was watching from the side of the room. My son became an incredible man despite me. Not because of me, and that's something I'll carry for the rest of my life. After the session, one of the youth, a 16-year-old named Andre, approached Marcus. Mr. Marcus, my father abandoned me too. How do you think I can avoid being like him? Marcus looked at Jamal before answering. By doing what my son did, choosing to be better, choosing to break the cycle, choosing to be the man you wish your father had been. What if I don't know how? Then you ask for help. You find mentors. You find examples, and you work every day to be better than you were yesterday. Marcus lived for 8 more months after reappearing in Jamal's life. In the last months, when he was too sick to leave the hospital, Jamal visited him twice a week. They never developed the father-son relationship Marcus hoped for, but they developed something, perhaps mutual respect, perhaps a form of peace. "Jamal," Marcus said in one of their last conversations, "there's something I need to tell you." "What?" "Your mother, Denise. She's the strongest person I've ever met. What she did, raising you alone, working so hard, never giving up on you, that's heroism. I know. You're lucky to have her. I am, and she's lucky to have me too now." Marcus smiled weakly. "Yes, she is. You became the son any mother would dream of having. Not always. I was terrible to her for years. But you changed. You grew. That's what matters." Marcus died on a Tuesday morning. Jamal was there, holding his hand. His last words were, "Tell your mother thank you for doing a better job than I ever could." At the funeral, only Jamal, Denise, some of Marcus's colleagues, and, surprisingly, several youth from the Second Chances program who had been touched by his story of remorse attended. "Why did they come?" Denise asked. "Because they saw a man face his failures," Jamal replied. "They saw that it's never too late to try to do the right thing, even if it's just apologizing." 5 years passed since Marcus's death. Jamal was now married to a teacher named Alicia, whom he met during a mentoring event. They had a 2-year-old son, Marcus Denise Washington, named in honor of the grandfather he never knew, and the extraordinary grandmother who raised him. The Second Chances program had expanded to 20 cities and helped over 1,000 youth. Deshawn had graduated as a computer technician and now managed the program's tech component. On a Saturday afternoon, Jamal was at home, playing with his son in the backyard, when Alicia brought the phone. "It's for you, a TV producer." "Hello? Mr. Washington, this is Sarah Chen from PBS. We're producing a documentary about successful mentoring programs and would like to include Second Chances." "It would be an honor." "Wonderful. We'd also like to interview you and your mother about your own transformation story." Jamal looked at his son, who was trying to take his first steps on the lawn, with Denise, now a radiant grandmother, encouraging him. "Of course. But I want you to include one thing in the documentary." "What?" "I want you to show that heroes aren't always famous people doing extraordinary things. Sometimes they're single mothers working 3 jobs and refusing to give up on their children." "That's beautiful. We'll definitely include that." After he hung up, Jamal joined his family in the backyard. Denise was holding her grandson, singing the same lullaby she used to sing to Jamal when he was little. "Grandma," little Marcus babbled, his first attempts at words. "That's right, baby. Grandma loves you very much." Jamal sat on the grass beside them, watching 3 generations of his family. His son would never grow up without a father. He would never feel the pain of abandonment that had defined so much of Jamal's adolescence. He would grow up knowing love, stability, and examples of how to be a good man. "What are you thinking about?" Alicia asked, joining them. "About how sometimes the worst things that happen to us end up leading to the best." "How so?" "If my father hadn't abandoned me, maybe I never would have truly appreciated my mother. If I hadn't been a troubled teenager, maybe I never would have developed empathy for other lost youth. If I hadn't hit rock bottom, maybe I never would have found my purpose." Denise looked at him with a smile. "Do you know which verse always gave me strength during your difficult years?" "Which one?" "Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Did you really believe that even in the worst moments, especially in the worst moments, because I knew God wasn't wasting our pain. He was using it to shape us. Little Marcus took a few wobbly steps toward his father, who caught him in his arms. "And now," Alicia asked, "what's the next chapter?" Jamal looked at his family, his mother, who had sacrificed everything for him, his wife, Jean, who supported him in everything, his son, who represented hope and future. Now we continue doing the work, one family at a time, one young person at a time, one transformed life at a time. He kissed his son's forehead. And we make sure this little person grows up knowing he's loved, valued, and that he has a father who will never abandon him. And if he makes mistakes, if he goes through a rebellious phase like you, Jamal smiled, looking at his mother, then we'll do what my mother did. We'll love through the storm. We'll maintain faith when hope seems lost. And we'll never, ever give up. Because, Denise added, gently rocking in the rocking chair, that's the thing about true love. It's not based on what someone does or doesn't do. It's based on who they are to you. As the sun set over their backyard, 4 generations of the Washington family, including Marcus through his redeemed memory, sat together. A story that had begun with abandonment, anger, and pain had transformed into love, purpose, and hope. And somewhere in the city, a troubled young person was about to make a decision that would change their life. Maybe they would choose the difficult path of change. Maybe they would find their way to the Second Chances program. Maybe they would discover that no matter how lost you are, there's always a way back home. Because sometimes the happiest endings come from the darkest beginnings, and sometimes the greatest purposes are born from the greatest pains.